Caleb Rhine had always considered himself a straightforward man, growing up on the rugged frontier colonies of Earth's scattered dominion in the Orion Arm. He had known more dust storms than summer breezes, and more hardships than wonders. Yet the day he first set foot on the orbital outpost, Herculeon Prime, his senses came alive in a way they never had before. The docking bay thrummed with an energy he could not define, and the curving metal corridors glowed with a soft luminescence that spoke of alien engineering beyond the typical design of Earth's Confederation starports. He had disembarked from the starfreighter Fortuna's wing with nothing more than a small duffel bag, a standard-issue jacket, and a curious heart. He was done with soldiering. His unit disbanded after a horrific border war with the insectoid Hrax, but the call to remain physically active persisted. He needed structure, a reason to keep in shape. Word around the space lanes was that Herculeon Prime offered state-of-the-art training facilities that catered to all species. In short, it was a fancy gym. And so Caleb signed up for a membership, hoping the new environment might quell his restlessness. The very architecture of Herculeon Prime's gym complex was colossal. It made sense. Membership was open to any being in this sector. You might see a graceful, ethereal Silenx, whose elongated limbs required entire balconies of headroom, or a squat, barrel-chested Gorindi, who could bench press more than 3 humans combined. The corridors were designed to comfortably accommodate beings up to 15 feet tall, beings like the Dravari. Caleb knew a bit about the Dravari from his days in the service. Towering, powerful, and proud, they were known throughout the galaxy as peerless warriors, often referred to as steel-blooded Amazons. When speaking of the female Dravari, he had never actually spoken to one in person before, but stories circulated widely. If you found yourself in a fight alongside a Dravari, you could rest assured you would either win or be thoroughly avenged. Yet he had not expected to meet a Dravari so soon, nor in such a personal capacity. On his second day at Herculeon Prime's facility, just as he was signing in to a mandatory orientation and baseline fitness evaluation, he was approached by an athletic liaison who looked as if he had sprinted straight from Earth's best professional sports. The liaison glanced at Caleb's profile, then tapped a device. A few bleeps later, the man grinned. "Interesting," he said. "You're assigned to Kalara for personal training." "Kalara," Caleb repeated, trying to mask his apprehension. "Is that a Dravari, by any chance?" The liaison chuckled. "And then some. She's one of our top trainers, around 13 feet tall, specialized in high-intensity regimens. Considering your ex-military background, the system flagged you for her advanced program. Are you up for it?" Caleb felt his heart thump. "I'm not one to back down from a challenge," he said, feigning confidence. "Let's do this." Moments later, standing within a gargantuan training dome, Caleb found himself dwarfed by Herculeon Prime's wide expanse, a ringed chamber featuring adjustable gravity, advanced obstacle courses, and reinforced floors. Artificial sunlight streamed from overhead lumipads, meant to accommodate the tallest species. The ceiling soared high above like a cathedral. He didn't wait long. Metal gates on the far side slid open, revealing the largest humanoid he had ever seen. Kalara, clad in a dark training harness across her broad chest and legs, moved with casual grace. Her skin was a pale bluish gray, reminiscent of steel. Her hair, black as obsidian, fell in a thick, intricately braided cascade down her back. The lines of her face were elegant but fierce, high cheekbones, eyes that glowed a faint gold, and a mouth set with quiet determination. If she was surprised at seeing a comparatively small human assigned to her, she did not show it. Instead, she looked down at the data pad in her massive hand, then at Caleb. A faint, almost inscrutable twitch of her lips suggested amusement. "You're the new Earth recruit?" she asked. Her voice was deep and resonant, but surprisingly gentle in tone. Caleb swallowed, determined not to let his awe show. "Caleb Rhine, here for the advanced program." She regarded him, eyes studying his frame, broad shoulders, muscular arms, but obviously puny compared to a Dravari. Kalara's nostrils flared, breathing him in. The Dravari had an acute sense of smell, or so he had read. She gave a slight nod of approval. "Your stance is balanced. Ex-military indeed," Kalara said. "We'll see how you fare with training. I trust you don't object to a direct approach." He had expected some measure of formality, but Dravari had their own customs, and many could be blunt. "No objections. I learned best hands-on," he said. "Good," she answered curtly. "Let us see how quickly you adapt. We begin at once." Without further preamble, she ushered him into a portion of the training dome, set with adjustable gravity floors. The environment panels displayed a swirling desert scene, complete with artificial wind. She tapped something on a wrist device, and the air grew heavier, gravity intensifying in increments. Caleb felt a distinct drag on his limbs, as though each step demanded double the usual exertion. 40% above Earth standard, Kalara declared. "Light warm-up for me. Probably near your threshold to begin with." He tried not to gape. Dravari apparently trained in these high-gravity conditions, as if it were second nature. "I can handle it," he replied. Though sweat beaded on his forehead, he paced alongside her through the desert. His boots sank into the shifting, artificially generated sand, each footfall sapping more energy than he thought he'd expend on a normal day. Kalara followed, her enormous stride forcing him to half-jog just to keep up. Yet her expression offered no sympathy. "Focus on your breathing," she said over the simulated wind. "If you wish to keep up, do it properly." Caleb took a deep breath, remembering old training routines from his military days. He called upon the discipline hammered into him by countless drills. Step by step, he found a rhythm. The heaviness did not relent, but he steeled himself, pushing beyond the initial shock to his muscles. After a brutal half-hour, she finally powered down the environment. The desert melted back into a neutral gray floor, the gravity returning to normal. Caleb exhaled in relief. Kalara, unimpressed, seemed ready to proceed to the next challenge. He braced for some well-meaning but harsh criticism, but instead, she gave a single nod that might have been admiration. "Not bad," she said. "For a first-timer in elevated gravity, you adapted quickly." He felt a strange surge of pride. "I aim to impress." "You'll need that aim," she answered. "We're only beginning." By the time their session ended, Caleb was sore in places he didn't know existed. In the final hour, Kalara demonstrated grappling moves, carefully adjusting her strength so she didn't crush him outright. Even so, he found himself flipped and pinned at least a dozen times, helpless to the unstoppable momentum of her techniques. She moved with a fluidity belying her size. When the final whistle sounded, she released him, stepping back. "Report here tomorrow, same time," she said. "We'll escalate the regimen. Your body will be in shock, but that's how we Dravari shape new recruits." He caught his breath. "Understood." She turned, braids swirling, as she strode away. Towering over the relatively modest array of human visitors scattered around the training dome's outer benches, Caleb found himself rooted in place, his mind racing. There was something about her presence, her calm intensity, the sense of unwavering discipline that reminded him of his best commanding officers. And yet, there was also something undeniably different, an almost magnetic quality that made him want to prove himself. As he made his way to the locker room, he couldn't help but wonder if he was in over his head. but a flicker of excitement churned in his gut. He wanted to see how far he could go under Kalara's guidance. That night, he returned to his modest quarters, which overlooked the star-studded vacuum of space beyond Herculeon Prime's hull. Sleep came in fragments, broken by dreams of luminous eyes and a giant's voice, urging him onward. The second morning on Herculeon Prime dawned in a perpetual glow from the station's overhead lighting cycles. There was no true sunrise here, merely a shift in the color temperature of the artificial lights that signaled it was morning. Caleb woke with muscles aflame, and he had to psych himself up just to stand. Nevertheless, he arrived at the training dome early, determined not to show weakness. As he waited on the bench, sipping a rationed electrolyte drink, he spotted Kalara entering from the far side. She strode straight toward him, carrying a training datapad. Punctual, she noted. Good. I'd rather be early than keep you waiting, he said, rubbing his stiff neck. Your posture is tense, she observed. You're sore, he shrugged. I'll live. You'll have to do more than live, she retorted. We push forward. Today's session is partly technical. I'll evaluate your skill with ranged weapons, then your hand-to-hand reflexes. Caleb's eyebrows rose. Ranged weapons. This is a gym, not a war zone. You humans, she said, a faint trace of amusement in her deep voice. The Dravari concept of training includes proficiency with all forms of combat, from grappling to marksmanship. This facility provides the same for any who dare to learn. You wore a soldier's uniform, so you'll reacquaint yourself with the tools of your past. The day's exercises were as rigorous as promised. In a specialized firing range, augmented by holographic projectors, Kalara unleashed wave after wave of simulated targets. Caleb had to draw a standard-issue sidearm from a holster, reacting quickly to moving illusions. Slowly, the muscle memory returned, his accuracy improving with every shot. Kalara commented occasionally, her voice guiding him. Higher. Keep your arms steady. Focus on your next shot, not your previous miss. He did as instructed, pushing aside extraneous thought. The marksmanship test lasted an hour, culminating in a final sequence of rapid-fire silhouettes that tested his reflexes to their limit. The simulation ended, and the console displayed a modestly respectable score, better than average. Kalara observed, You're not as rusty as you claim. Her reserved compliment filled him with a measure of satisfaction. I tried not to lose all my skills after leaving the service. Good. Now, to the next arena. They moved to a smaller ring, ringed by thick crash mats. Kalara switched the environment setting. The air shimmered, coalescing into a simulated forest canopy. The ring acquired a textured floor reminiscent of damp earth. She activated a series of drones, small, round constructs that hovered at chest height, each armed with a low-level stun function. Caleb recognized them from advanced training fields back in the service. He had always hated them. Your objective is to evade or disable the drones, Kalara explained. Their blasts won't kill you, but you'll feel them and you'll be slowed down with each hit. He grimaced. Great. She started the scenario. Immediately, 4 drones lit up, beams sizzling through the artificially moist air. Caleb ducked behind a projected tree trunk, rolling across the mat. He pivoted in time to see a second volley. His instincts roared to life, and he launched himself forward, grappling one drone mid-air and slamming it to the floor with a neat takedown. A jolt ran through his fingers, a partial stun, but he powered through, disabling the machine. 3 remained, darting in elliptical patterns. From the corner of his eye, he noticed Kalara watching with folded arms, her expression unreadable. Pressing his advantage, he lunged sideways, returning fire with an improvised baton that Kalara had handed him. It was a simple rod, but it directed energy pulses when activated. Two more drones fell, sparking. The last drone got a shot off that clipped his shoulder, sending a tingle of numbness down his arm. But he managed a final strike that disabled it. Panting, he turned off the baton. How was that? Kalara's golden gaze lingered on him. You persevere well. Another test completed. In the days that followed, each training session with Kalara was a fresh gauntlet. She was tireless, often pushing him to near collapse. After one particularly grueling session of high-gravity sprinting, Caleb slumped against the wall, breathing hard. Dravari conditioning is something else, he admitted between gulps of air. Kalara nodded, extending a huge hand to help him up. He grasped her forearm. Her skin felt cool, and beneath it, her muscles were like coiled steel. He remembered stories that Dravari boasted internal reinforcement that made them almost impervious to certain forms of trauma. Now, he believed it. She lifted him with ease, a fleeting half-smile touching her lips. You do well for a human, she said softly. Better than many I've trained. The praise, though mild, made his chest swell with a curious warmth. He could not recall the last time he had felt such validation. Maybe it was the Dravari way, giving recognition only when truly earned. But beneath that sense of pride, a seed of something else began to stir, a subtle attraction. Perhaps. It was surreal. He had never envisioned himself relating in any personal way to a being nearly twice his height. Yet Kalara's presence was magnetic, an aura of resolute power that drew his respect and fanned some deeper flame. At the week's end, Herculeon Prime's gym complex organized a multi-species exhibition event. Each trainer and trainee pair could demonstrate a routine or a skill. Caleb found himself training day and night under Kalara's rigorous direction. She insisted they perform a close combat demonstration, a stylized routine too. Showcased Dravari grappling adapted to human limitations. Do not be late tomorrow, she said the night before the event, her voice stern. We will finalize the routine in the morning. I'll be here, Caleb promised. He arrived early again, stretching in a quiet corner to ease the knots in his shoulders. Kalara soon appeared, her expression more intense than usual. She was dressed in her training harness, but with ornamental metal wrist guards that gleamed under the overhead lights. A hush of anticipation filled the training dome, which was decorated with banners and various alien scripts for the exhibition. They reviewed the steps of their demonstration. It was both a dance and a spar, a series of feigned strikes and grabs. Kalara would go in for a towering blow. Caleb would dodge. Hooking her arm, she would pivot, spinning him around in a blur, only for him to slip free. Each motion demanded fluid cooperation. When the moment arrived, a small crowd formed around them, humans, a handful of Dravari, and other species from across the sector. The demonstration began. Caleb focused on controlling his breath, ignoring the onlookers. Kalara's presence dominated, guiding each movement as though it were a perfectly choreographed sequence. He spun under her massive arm, stepping behind her. She shifted, catching him in a measured hold. He twisted free. The crowd gasped at the improbable sight of a normal-sized human breaking loose from a giant's grip. Then she faked a punch that whooshed inches from his ear, and he countered with a low sweep that she leaped over, landing with a thunderous stomp that reverberated through the mat. The entire routine lasted little more than a minute, but it crackled with intensity. When at last they reached the final strike, Kalara's feigned knockout blow that ended inches from Caleb's chest, there was silence, followed by roaring applause. Caleb, heart-hammering, blinked sweat from his eyes. Kalara turned to the crowd and inclined her head in acknowledgement, but he felt a subtle glance in his direction. A moment later, she gestured for him to stand beside her, as if sharing the credit. Perhaps it was pride or camaraderie, but for an instant, he felt something pass between them, a shared current of triumph and understanding. It was fleeting, but undeniable. The Dravari rarely expressed emotion publicly, yet in that small nod and glance, Caleb sensed a certain closeness. Strange, he thought, how quickly bonds could form in adversity, and how training together could forge a respect deeper than words. As the weeks went by, Caleb felt himself growing stronger, faster, and more adaptable under Kalara's grueling regimen. It wasn't just physical, either. She introduced him to Dravari breathing techniques, mental resilience practices, and even some aspects of their cultural philosophies around honor and discipline. Whenever he asked questions, she gave measured but revealing answers. He learned that Kalara had served in the Dravari Vanguard, an elite force known for securing the Dravari star nexus from external threats. She had fought in conflicts far more dangerous than any confrontation the human confederation had seen, and she'd done so for decades. Her species aged more slowly, effectively enjoying lifespans thrice that of humans. One evening, after a particularly intense session, Caleb found himself in the facility's communal lounge area. It was a broad space with transparent observation panels offering a dizzying view of the starfield. Patrons from countless worlds mingled here, relaxing after workouts or exchanging tales of their homeworlds. Kalara joined him, looming like a monolith beside the bar, where an automated dispenser offered protein-fortified beverages. He ordered a mild energy drink, and Kalara, surprisingly, ordered something from a Dravari data entry that the machine recognized. The beverage hissed out in a large, reinforced mug. She took a sip. Caleb cleared his throat, feeling oddly self-conscious. "I never asked what brought you to Herculeon Prime as a trainer," he said, speaking above the gentle hum of the station's life support systems. Kalara exhaled, her golden eyes drifting over the view of distant stars. "After my last campaign in the Vanguard, I chose to take a sabbatical. I found that training others, especially those of different species, broadened my perspective. There's a sense of fulfillment watching someone grow under your guidance." Caleb nodded. "That's commendable. I can see why you'd be an asset here." She regarded him briefly. "You say that as though you think this place is an easy outpost. There's more going on under the surface of Herculeon Prime." He raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" Her jaw tensed. "I can't be certain, but rumors speak of clandestine experiments. Some off-limits research that the facility's higher-ups conceal from the average visitor." Something about her tone made Caleb's stomach twist. "You've seen evidence of it?" Kalara shook her head. "Only fragments. Late-night shipments to restricted sectors. Strange comings and goings by species seldom seen on the open floors." He felt a spark of curiosity. "Think it's connected to the Orion Arm expansions?" "Possibly," she allowed, eyes narrowing. "Or it could be more sinister. The Dravari hold themselves to a strict code of honorable combat and scientific exploration, but not all species do. Some prize an advantage at any cost, even if it means unethical experiments." Caleb shifted, remembering the horrors of the Hrax War. "I've seen how far some are willing to go for a strategic edge." They fell silent for a moment, the lounge around them bustling with carefree chatter, oblivious to the undercurrents of suspicion. Kalara placed a large hand gently on Caleb's shoulder. "Stay wary, but do not let it disrupt your training. If something is amiss, we will discover it in due time." In the following weeks, that sense of hidden intrigue lingered in the periphery. Caleb's daily life remained filled with muscle-aching routines, sparring sessions, and technique drills. Yet occasionally, he would catch glimpses of restricted corridors guarded by stern-faced officials, or glimpses of unknown cargo being shuttled in at odd hours. He shared his observations with Kalara, and she listened with a thoughtful frown. She had begun to trust him enough to discuss certain suspicions openly, though she remained careful, as Dravari did not leap to conclusions without proof. Then, an opportunity arose that would change everything. A higher-ranking official from the gym's administration summoned them to a private meeting. The official, a tall, lithe being belonging to some avian-like species, introduced themselves as Overseer Sirik. With a clipped tone, Sirik informed Kailara that her pairings for advanced training would be expanded to include specialized tasks, covert security evaluations of the facility. Because Kailara was well regarded among the staff, the administration sought her assistance in identifying blind spots or weaknesses in Herculeon Prime security protocols. Kailara glanced at Caleb. "And what does this have to do with my human trainee?" she asked. Sirik's dark eyes flicked between them. "He is your current partner, is he not? You have shown synergy. We would be remiss not to include him, provided he agrees to sign our confidentiality contracts." Caleb, curiosity piqued, glanced up at Kalara's towering form. "I'm in if you are," he said quietly. She bowed her head in agreement. "So be it. We will do what is asked." This assignment gave them unprecedented clearance to parts of Herculeon Prime that Caleb had never seen: monitoring rooms, cargo bays, and restricted labs. They were to run simulated infiltration tests, checking if security drones and personnel were truly up to standard. Officially, that was all it was: a routine security stress test. But Caleb couldn't shake the idea that it was something more. Perhaps the administration suspected some internal wrongdoing and wanted to root it out without causing alarm. Their first inspection took place in the late hours of the station's night cycle. The corridors were empty, lit by a subdued blue glow. Kalara walked at a measured pace, scanning door panels and motion-activated turrets. Caleb followed, occasionally hacking access terminals with the codes Sirik had provided. They made notes of any vulnerabilities. It was in the sub-level cargo hold that they stumbled on their first real anomaly. Under normal circumstances, these crates were supposed to be medical or nutritional supplies for the gym. Yet Kalara noticed the marking on one shipping container, an emblem belonging to a clandestine biotech conglomerate rumored to operate well beyond legal boundaries. Frowning, they pried the lid open. Inside were rows of cylindrical canisters labeled with cryptic sequences, each containing a viscous, fluorescent fluid. Caleb ran a handheld scanner. The readout indicated an advanced genetic matrix, something that typically required specialized clearance for storage and transport. His heart pounded. "What the hell is this?" he whispered. Kalara's jaw clenched. "This is no mere gym supply. It appears we've stumbled onto something they didn't want discovered." Just then, a metallic voice echoed through the corridor. "Unrecognized individuals in restricted area. Please remain where you are." Caleb whipped around. Security drones glided in, weapons primed. Kalara moved instantly, stepping protectively in front of him, her stance bristling with readiness. "These codes from Sirik should clear us." Caleb hissed, fumbling with his datapad. The lead drone paused, scanning the device. "Clearance recognized. Continue, but do not tamper with sealed crates." Kalara exhaled, tension easing from her shoulders. They sealed the crate as instructed, stepping away as the drones hovered in watchful silence. But they both knew they had just uncovered a crucial secret. Something involving biotech or genetic manipulation was being stored here. And with that fluid's ominous glow, there could be far-reaching implications for any species in the station's orbit. When they finally returned to their quarters, Kalara had her own Dravari-sized living space near the advanced training halls. Caleb noticed she was uncharacteristically silent. She sat on a bench sized for her massive frame, arms crossed, expression distant. "What are you thinking?" He ventured softly. She glanced at him, golden eyes meeting his. "That we must proceed carefully. If we accuse the administration without proof, we'll be dismissed or worse. But we can't ignore what we saw. This fluid could be a weapon or something used for unethical enhancement." Caleb nodded. "We might need to investigate further on our own." Quietly, she inhaled, then slowly released the breath. "I sense your determination. But be warned, once we embark on a path like this, we must follow it to the end. The Dravari do not shrink from truth, nor do we fear the battles that may come. If we do this, we do it together." He didn't hesitate. "I'm with you, Kalara." She gazed at him for a long moment, and a subtle warmth touched her stoic features. "So be it," she said softly. Over the next few days, Kalara and Caleb performed their duties as normal, keeping to the official channels while discreetly probing for more information. Training sessions continued ludicrous gravity circuits, advanced sparring, and new drills that left Caleb with burning muscles, yet also a growing sense of capability. Outside of official hours, they quietly tracked staff movements, studied shipping manifests, and dug through the labyrinthine data logs that governed Herculeon Prime's commerce. They discovered that several shipments were tied to the same biotech conglomerate. The logs were incomplete, heavily redacted. But one name did surface repeatedly: Project Synergy. The cargo was always directed to an off-limits laboratory in the station's lower decks, overseen by an individual known only as Director Quintas. As the puzzle pieces stacked up, Caleb found himself spending more time with Kalara outside normal training. Sometimes, they would share quick meals in the lounge, whispering about new findings. Other times, they pored over data in her quarters, with him perched on a stool, dwarfed by her furnishings. Throughout, an unspoken closeness grew. Kalara's usual reserve softened in small, telling ways: a slight laugh, a gentle nudge, or a lingering glance. One evening, they decided to push deeper, through a hack on a locked terminal. Caleb secured a partial blueprint of the restricted lab. It showed multiple floors and heavily armed checkpoints, with clear indications that advanced gene mod experiments were underway. At the bottom of the blueprint was a cryptic sub-level labeled Combat Trials. Combat Trials, Caleb murmured, scanning the data. "This is starting to look like they're testing something on living subjects." Kalara's breath hissed between her teeth. "My people would consider it dishonorable to conduct such tests without informed consent. If the administration is complicit, they must be exposed." They arranged a stealthy incursion, planning it for the night cycle. Armed with the codes from Overseer Sirik, they intended to see what was behind those checkpoints. Tension coiled in Caleb's stomach as they moved through deserted corridors. He was keenly aware that if their codes were flagged as unauthorized, they could be arrested or worse. At the final checkpoint, they encountered a pair of imposing guards, each wearing advanced ballistic gear. Both were human, eyes glinting with suspicion as Kalara approached. Caleb braced for conflict, but Kalara merely handed over an official clearance holo. The guard examined it for an uncomfortably long moment before nodding. "Go on through," the guard said, stepping aside. The door hissed open, revealing a sterile corridor illuminated with harsh white lighting. The walls were lined with reinforced windows, but the glass was clouded or tinted, making it difficult to see inside. A faint hum of machinery reverberated beneath the floor. At the far end of the corridor, they found a lab station. Banks of monitors displayed genetic readouts, vital signs, and chemical synthesis data. Caleb recognized some lines as referencing Dravari biology. Others mentioned humans, Silinx, and half a dozen other species. The scope was staggering. They crept deeper. Kalara tensed, motioning for Caleb to stay low. Beyond a thick pane of observation glass, they saw what looked like a medical bay. Figures in lab coats hovered over a sedated alien on an operating table, a tall, broad figure that could only be Dravari. Strange tubes protruded from the subject's arms, feeding in that same luminescent fluid they had discovered in the crates. Caleb's gut twisted. "They're injecting them with that substance," he whispered. Kalara's expression darkened with outrage. She tapped a panel, and a partial audio feed crackled to life. Increased aggression noted. "We must refine the dosage." Dravari physiology is resilient, but shows potential for extraordinary synergy with our bioagent. Project Synergy could revolutionize the training industry, or other, more tactical applications. Caleb clenched his fists, adrenaline surging. They were doping Dravari, possibly other species. 2. For some unscrupulous experiment, and tactical applications hinted that certain parties sought an army of enhanced warriors. Before they could gather more data, a sudden klaxon blared. The corridor was flooded with red lights. Kalara cursed softly. "They've detected us." Alarms erupted as security drones poured into the corridor, weapons charged. Kalara sprang into action, her reflexes honed by years of Dravari discipline. She lunged forward, fists connecting with metallic shells. The drone sparked and collapsed. Caleb, still reeling from the shock, followed suit, firing a borrowed stun pistol to disable more incoming machines. The corridor erupted in chaos. They dashed back the way they came, only to find their path blocked by a heavy security door that slammed shut. Overhead, the facility's computerized voice intoned, "Intruder alert, sealing all exits." Kalara grabbed a door panel, trying to force it open, but even her formidable strength could barely budge the security plating. "We'll be trapped if we stay here," she growled. Caleb's eyes darted around. There must be an auxiliary route. These labs always have emergency escapes. They raced down a side passage. Another door awaited, locked tight. Kalara gestured for him to hack it, but the system required advanced credentials. He set to work with trembling fingers, splicing into the console. Drones buzzed around the corner, firing pulses that skimmed by his head. Kalara roared, charging to meet them head-on. Time blurred. His hacking device beeped success. The door slid open, revealing a dimly lit cargo lift. Caleb yelled to Kalara, "In here!" She sprinted back, batting away a final drone. Together, they leaped onto the lift, jamming the controls. The doors clanged, shut, and the platform rumbled downward into darkness. The alarm still shrieked in the distance, echoing through the shaft. Breathless, they exchanged glances. She had a gash across her left arm, a shallow cut, but bleeding with thick, dark blood. He was battered and bruised, a scorch mark across his jacket. Yet the spark in her eyes and the pounding in his chest told him they had made a vital discovery. Their mission was now far larger than a mere security evaluation. They had to expose the truth, possibly even dismantle the operation if it turned out as dire as it seemed. The cargo lift shuddered to a halt. The door opened onto a sublevel that did not appear on any blueprint. The hallway was deserted, lined with storerooms. Faint emergency lighting flickered. Kalara flexed her injured arm, grimacing. "We cannot go back up. They'll be expecting us. Let us see if there's another way out." They pressed forward, trying doors along the corridor. Most were locked or empty. Then one opened, revealing a storage space filled with more vials of that neon fluid. Row after row, enough to power an entire army of genetically enhanced fighters. Caleb's heart sank at the scale. This is massive. Suddenly, a voice rang out. You're trespassing where you do not belong. They spun around. A figure stood at the threshold, a tall, older man with a severe expression. He wore the insignia of the station's higher administration, Director Quintus. His gaze flickered over Kalara's injured arm, then to Caleb's stunned face. You have no idea the value of this research, he said coldly. We have an unprecedented opportunity here. Project Synergy can turn baseline soldiers into unstoppable elites, bridging the genetic gap between species. Kalara growled. At what cost? Experiments on unwilling subjects. Abominations to natural biology. Quintus shrugged. Spare me your moralizing. Dravari, you come from a warrior culture. I would think you'd appreciate the outcome. With your training protocols and our enhancements, we can forge a new era in galactic security. Security, Caleb snapped. You call kidnapping and doping people security. Quintus' eyes glinted. Some gave their consent, though I admit many details were withheld. But the results exceed anything any single species could do on their own. You two have seen enough. I doubt you'll leave this station alive. He pressed a device on his wrist, presumably calling more guards. Kalara tensed, preparing for combat. But Quintus simply smirked, stepping aside as a side door hissed open. Through it emerged a towering shape, a Dravari, easily as large as Kalara, but with veins coursing with the neon fluid. The giant's eyes glowed red, not gold, betraying a savage fury. Drool slipped between snarling lips. Meet an early test subject, Quintus said. His enhancements are incomplete, but we'll see how well you fare. With a bestial roar, the altered Dravari lunged at Kalara. Metal shelving crashed aside as they grappled. Caleb ducked away from flailing limbs, looking for an opening to help. Kalara's face was set in grim determination. The Dravari might be equally strong, but the subject's mind was clearly damaged, moves uncoordinated, driven by rage rather than skill. Still, the brute's blows struck like hammers. Kalara stumbled, slammed against the wall. She grimaced, returning a powerful strike that staggered the subject. Caleb darted forward, retrieving a stun baton from a fallen crate. He rushed in, jabbing at the savage Dravari's side. Electricity crackled, momentarily halting the creature. Kalara seized the advantage, twisting behind and locking the subject's arm. With a final grunt, she flipped him to the floor. The subject crashed down, unconscious or nearly so. Director Quintus scowled in fury. You meddling fools! I will not be thwarted by. But in the next instant, the station's alarm changed pitch, and automated voices declared a partial lockdown breach. Caleb seized the moment, grabbing Kalara's hand. We have to go now, she nodded, eyes blazing, and they bolted toward a side corridor while Quintus screamed commands for reinforcements. Behind them, the savage Dravari stirred and roared anew, throwing crates aside. The entire place rattled with violence as they fled deeper, searching for an alternate exit. The hallway angled upward, suggesting it might connect to a higher level where they could slip back into the normal station decks. Keep going, Kalara urged, though blood streaked her arm and her breathing was ragged. Her presence spurred him on. He gritted his teeth, fighting fatigue and the sting of near misses from the guard's sporadic gunfire. At last, they found a staircase leading upward. They climbed, hearts pounding, and emerged into a corridor that fed into a maintenance hatch. With quick work, Caleb bypassed its electronic lock. They crawled through a cramped maintenance tunnel, hearts hammering. They had escaped immediate danger, but the entire station's security must now be after them. spurred on by Quintus. They needed allies, someone who might blow this conspiracy wide open. And, perhaps, in this desperate hour, they could only trust each other. Kaylara and Caleb emerged from the maintenance tunnel into one of the gym's lesser-used training arenas, a high-ceilinged chamber with only a few overhead lights shining like dim halos. With the station's alarms still wailing in the distance, they took a moment to catch their breaths. Kaylara's injury was more severe than she had let on, a long gash that needed immediate attention. "We should get to the med bay," Caleb said, scanning the area for pursuers, "or at least find a first aid kit." She nodded, her stoicism plain. "I can manage for now." "But you're right." They slipped through service corridors, heading toward the public medical facility. To their relief, the bustling gym floors were relatively unaffected by the lockdown. The staff had no idea about the subterranean chaos. Yet as they approached the med bay, they spotted more security drones. Caleb motioned for caution. Drones hovered near the entrance. Scanning each visitor's ID, Kaylara gave him a level look. "We won't get in without conflict. Maybe there's another way," Caleb suggested. "We can't just waltz in with your injury and not attract attention." "Let's try the side entrance," she said. They circled around to a staff-only door. Caleb used the codes from their security assignment, half expecting them to be revoked. To his surprise, the door unlocked, though an alarm beeped faintly. They entered a small corridor lined with storage closets. Lights flickered overhead, as if the station's systems were experiencing strain from multiple alerts. They found a compact clinic room stocked with emergency medical supplies. Kaylara seated herself on an oversized bench, and Caleb set to work with antiseptics and a dermal regenerator. He might not be a medic, but he had enough field training to handle basic wounds. She inhaled sharply as the regenerator did its job, the laceration knitting before his eyes. Her stoic facade was unyielding, but the tension in her body told him she felt every pang. He tried to lighten the mood. "You Dravari are supposed to be almost invincible, right?" She gave a soft snort. "We are tough, but not impervious." "This is proof enough," he managed to grin, though worry gnawed at him. "At least you'll heal faster with Dravari physiology." They sat in uneasy silence. The last hour had radically shifted their world. They had discovered a monstrous conspiracy beneath the station's polished veneer. They were fugitives within Herculeon Prime, and the only evidence they had was intangible, half-downloaded data, glimpses of monstrous experiments. They needed help. Suddenly, a beep from Kaylara's wrist device broke the silence. She glanced at it. "A message from Overseer Sirik," she said. "It appears urgent." She tapped the display. Sirik's image flickered into a small holo-projection. Voice hushed. "Kaylara, if you are seeing this, you and your human associate have likely stumbled onto something beyond the normal security stress tests. Report to Section 7B, the private admin lounge, as soon as possible alone if you can. I may offer protection and clarity." The message ended. Caleb gave Kaylara a questioning look. "You think we can trust Sirik?" Kaylara folded her arms, testing her newly regenerated wound. "I suspect we have no better choice. Sirik outranks many here and might be the only figure able to stand against Quintus." They planned their route carefully, slipping through lesser-traveled corridors. Tension mounted with each step. More drones crisscrossed the halls. A few times, they had to duck into storage alcoves to avoid detection. An announcement echoed over the station's intercom. "Warning, intruders have breached restricted areas. Report any suspicious behavior immediately." At last, they arrived at Section 7B, a restricted lounge for station administrators. The corridor was deserted. Kaylara pressed her wrist device against the entry pad. The door slid open onto a sleek, softly lit lounge with plush seating designed for various alien physiologies. Overseer Sirik stood near a wide window, avian-like features drawn in concern. "You made it," Sirik said in a low voice. Kailara stared down at the official. "We uncovered proof of unethical experiments. Overseer. Quintus is behind them, something called Project Synergy." Sirik nodded gravely. "I suspected as much. Quintus has been plotting for months, if not longer. He orchestrated the shipments and bribed key individuals on Herculeon Prime staff. Our facility was meant to be a training haven for all species. But Quintus twisted that purpose to further his personal agenda. I only recently gathered enough evidence to confront him, but he wields considerable power." Caleb stepped forward, frustration in his eyes. "We have data. Not all of it is secure, but enough to make a case. People are being harmed down their subjects forcibly enhanced or manipulated without full disclosure." Sirik's expression hardened. "We must bring this to the Confederation authorities and the Draveri Council. However, Quintus controls the station's communications array. He can intercept transmissions. We must physically exit the station with the evidence to ensure the truth is delivered safely." Kailara nodded. "Then we must leave Herculeon Prime and reach Dravari or Confederation space. But the station is locked down." The Overseer walked to a console, tapping a series of commands. A holographic blueprint of Herculeon Prime shimmered into view. Sirik pointed to a docking ring on the station's underside. "Here, a service hangar used for emergency evacuation. If we can get you on a shuttle, you can slip past the main docking bay, assuming we bypass security. Once you're out of range, transmit the data to the authorities." Caleb's mind raced. "We? What about you?" Sirik grimaced. "I will remain behind. My rank might protect me long enough to disrupt Quintus' pursuit. With luck, he'll focus on containing me rather than chasing you. But you must hurry." Kailara stared at Sirik with surprising intensity. "You are risking your life for this." The Overseer bowed their head. "My duty is to the integrity of this station. Go take your data and see that it does not die here," though it pained them to leave an ally behind. They understood. Sirik provided a few final instructions, then ushered them to a discreet passage leading toward the maintenance shafts. Before departing, Kailara placed a hand gently on Sirik's slender shoulder. "Thank you." Sirik nodded once, then pressed a hidden switch that opened the lounge's side door. The corridor beyond was dark and silent, perfect for stealth. Caleb and Kailara slipped through, hearts pounding. Their progress was slow and fraught with tension. The deeper they went, the more frequently they encountered patrolling drones or armed guards. Twice they had to engage in brief skirmishes. Kailara's fists and Caleb's stun pistol proving surprisingly effective. But each conflict risked revealing their location. The station's klaxons were still echoing in certain halls. Eventually, they reached the designated service hangar. It was a cavernous space, half-lit, with rows of nondescript shuttles used by staff for external repairs or short-range hops to nearby outposts. Unfortunately, 2 squads of armed personnel stood guard, scanning for any intruders. Kailara and Caleb huddled behind a stack of cargo crates, surveying the situation. "We'll never get through undetected," Caleb whispered. "We have to fight or create a diversion." Kailara grimaced, mindful of her partially healed arm. "We cannot risk a prolonged battle, but a diversion might work." They quickly devised a plan. Caleb crept toward a side console that controlled robotic cargo loaders. A few keystrokes, and the machines roared to life. Rolling out from their berths, they crashed into stacked crates, toppling them with a thunderous clamor. Guards shouted, some firing at the rampaging loaders. In the confusion, Kaylara sprinted across the hangar, bounding with remarkable agility for someone her size. Caleb followed, chest tight with adrenaline. They made it to a small maintenance shuttle with an open hatch. Kaylara leaped inside, yanking him in after her. She powered up the controls. The console beeped warnings emergency lockdown in effect. With a growl, Kaylara overrode the security protocols using the code Cyric had given them. The shuttle's engines whined. Outside, the guards finally noticed the unauthorized launch. Shots pinged off the hull. Caleb ducked, praying the shuttle's plating was thick enough. "We're clear for liftoff." Kaylara shouted over the noise. The engines flared. The shuttle rose, thrusters blazing, then rocketed forward. A heavy hangar door began to close, but Kaylara thrust the throttle to maximum, slipping through the narrowing gap in a heart-stopping maneuver. They careened into the emptiness of space around Herculeon Prime, the station's massive form shrinking behind them. Stars glittered, and a swirl of cosmic dust formed a pale haze in the distance. The moment they cleared the station's sensor perimeter, Caleb transmitted the data encrypted logs, copies of lab footage, everything they had. He directed it to the Dravari Council and the Human Confederation's investigative branch, hoping one of them would receive it intact. Exhausted, they slumped in the shuttle's cockpit. Kaylara guided them toward the nearest jump gate on the star charts. "We must put as much distance as we can between ourselves and Herculeon Prime," she murmured. Caleb glanced at her, relief mixing with residual fear. "We made it out. We did the right thing. But what happens now?" She exhaled. "Now, we find allies who can shut down Project Synergy for good and ensure no one else falls victim to Quintus's ambition." Caleb nodded slowly. He dared to rest a hand on Kaylara's forearm, the contact surprisingly comforting. She glanced down, meeting his gaze. A flicker of warmth passed between them, more tangible than ever before. "Thank you," he said quietly, his voice tight with emotion. "I couldn't have done this alone." Her expression softened. "Nor I. Our bond has proven strong." In the hush of the shuttle's cabin, while alarms and chaos raged behind them in the starry void, they shared a moment of silent understanding. Whatever the future held, they would face it side by side. Their flight from Herculeon Prime set the stage for a pursuit that Kaylara and Caleb knew would come. Even though they had gained enough distance to transmit the stolen data, there were plenty of unscrupulous parties in the galaxy who would prefer that evidence disappear. Their shuttle was small, with limited jump range. They had to rely on the local star lanes and jump gates to traverse large distances. In the days that followed, they navigated these routes with caution, forging a path toward a Dravari outpost in a system known for its strategic military presence. Communication with the outpost had been spotty, but Kaylara trusted that once she reached Dravari territory, her people would take the threat seriously and act swiftly. Between gate transitions, they took turns piloting and resting in the cramped living quarters. Kaylara's wound continued to heal, though it still left her with a faint limp. Caleb helped where he could, ensuring she had enough ration supplements and tending to the shuttle's routine maintenance. He found himself marveling, not for the first time, at the surreal turn his life had taken. He had come to Herculeon Prime to find a new start, to keep himself physically fit only to uncover a conspiracy, flee for his life, and end up bonded to a Dravari warrior he was growing undeniably fond of. Late one shift, while Kaylara slept in a corner adapted for her size, Caleb stared through the shuttle's viewport at the drifting starscape. Memories of their narrow escape played through his mind. The savage Dravari test subject they had fought, Director Quintus's malevolent grin, it all haunted him. Yet he also remembered Kaylara's presence, her calm resolve, and the unwavering support she offered. As if sensing his thoughts, she stirred. "You can't sleep?" she asked in her low, resonant tone. He turned. "Couldn't shut off my brain." She rose, crossing to stand beside him, towering even in the cramped cabin. Her golden eyes flicked to the windows. "I know the feeling." For a moment, neither spoke. The quiet hum of the shuttle's life support was the only sound. Then Caleb swallowed, gathering courage. "Kaylara, I wanted to say, I appreciate what you did for me. You risked everything." She inclined her head, her braids swaying. "We are allies, you and I." Dravari do not abandon their allies, especially if they have proven themselves loyal. He hesitated. "I guess I hoped it was more than that." A faint flush crossed his cheeks. He couldn't believe he was treading such territory, he, a human of ordinary stature, speaking to a towering Dravari warrior about matters beyond simple camaraderie. But in the tension of that pause, Kaylara's gaze gentled. "I sense the bond between us," she said, her voice hushed. "It is uncommon, but not impossible. My people value strength, but also spirit. You have shown both. Even if you are not Dravari, you fight with courage, with respect for our ways. And you have awakened something in me as well." His heart pounded. "I didn't realize. Well, I wasn't sure if such a connection would be acceptable in your culture." She exhaled softly. Dravari culture honors shared struggle. Bonds formed in the crucible of combat are considered sacred, but romantic ties between species are rarer. Still, we forge our own paths. They stood close, the difference in height a stark reminder of their differences. Yet it felt oddly insignificant in the hush of that moment. He lifted a hand, letting it rest lightly on her arm. She nodded, as though granting permission, and slowly bent to bring her face closer. Their lips met in a tender, tentative brush. There was a quiet shock in the contact, an acknowledgement of the improbable. Yet it felt right, like a crossing of boundaries that no longer mattered in the face of all they had endured together. For several heartbeats, they lingered, suspended in that intimate space. When they drew apart, Kaylara's voice was a low rumble. "This changes nothing about our mission, but it changes us." Caleb's breath came unsteady. "Then let's face what's ahead together." A subtle smile touched her lips. Agreed. They moved on, their course charted for the Dravari outpost. The next star system loomed near. Communication channels lit up, indicating a local security frequency. Kalara took the pilot's seat, while Caleb braced behind her. "Hailing unknown shuttle," came a curt voice. "State your business and origin." Kalara transmitted her personal ID. "This is Kailara of the Dravari Vanguard, inbound with urgent information. Request priority docking and immediate audience with outpost command." A pause. Then the voice returned, more respectful. "Acknowledged. Kailara of the Vanguard, your codes are recognized. Proceed to docking platform Beta 7. Relief flooded them. The Dravari outpost soon appeared a massive fortress of gleaming metal spires, orbiting a red-tinged planet. Once inside its perimeter, Kailara guided the shuttle to a designated pad. Guards wearing Dravari insignia approached, scanning them with curious, respectful eyes. They bowed to Kailara, who acknowledged them with a brief salute. "I must speak with your commanding officer," she said in the Dravari language. "We bear grave news." The guards escorted them through the outpost's halls, designed to accommodate the Dravari's tall stature. Caleb couldn't help feeling dwarfed again. But with Kailara at his side, he stood taller. They passed austere metallic corridors, adorned only with Dravari script and the occasional carved relief depicting heroic battles. At last, they entered the presence of Commander Arashk, a broad-shouldered female Dravari, with skin so dark it verged on midnight blue. She wore ceremonial armor that denoted high rank, and her gaze was sharp as she took in Kalara's own battered training harness and the human at her side. Kalara bowed, crossing an arm over her chest in a Draveri salute. Commander Arashk, I bring dire news from Herculeon Prime. A conspiracy threatens not only Draveri, but multiple species. Arashk studied them for a moment. Speak, Kalara. Your name carries weight among the vanguard. Kalara stepped forward, explaining Project Synergy in calm but urgent tones. She described the forced enhancements, the savage Dravari test subject, and Director Quintus' ambitions. Caleb added details about the shipments, the data they had stolen. They produced the digital logs on a small device. Arashk's expression darkened. Abominations, she hissed. We Dravari do not condone such twisted manipulations. The Vanguard will respond. You did well to bring this to us. She turned to an aide. Activate a priority beacon to the Dravari Council. Summon a warship to investigate Herculeon Prime. If these conspirators resist, they will face the full might of our forces. The aide saluted and hurried off. Arashk focused on Kalara once more. You have done a service to our people. But what of you, human? Will you stand with us as we confront this threat? Caleb nodded firmly. Yes, Commander. I've seen too many horrors in my time as a soldier. I won't let this stand. Arashk gave a measured nod, respect glowing in her eyes. Then we fight as allies, safe behind Draveri lines. They spent the next hours awaiting the arrival of a council delegation. Kalara and Caleb found temporary quarters within the outpost. In the privacy of a large living chamber, they finally allowed themselves a moment's rest. Kalara stretched her limbs, wincing at the stiffness. You still hurt? Caleb asked softly. She exhaled. I will heal. The scarring is minimal. The battle strain will pass, given time. He wished he could do more. Yet she stood, stepping close. Her presence dwarfed him, but he felt no intimidation, only warmth. She placed a hand gently on his shoulder. You should rest, she said. Your eyes betray your exhaustion. He allowed a faint laugh. Only if you join me in resting. No more Dravari stand at attention naps. A glint of amusement touched her gaze. Very well. You have a point. Draveri can remain vigilant for days. But we are not without need for true respite. They settled on the chamber's sleeping platform, far larger than anything designed for a human alone. He found himself leaning into her broad shoulder, her arm sliding around him. It was a quiet, tender moment, one that defied the chaos they had endured. Sleep soon claimed them both, lulled by the knowledge that for now, they were safe under Dravari protection. In the morning, a formal summons arrived. The Dravari Council's envoy had reached the outpost, accompanied by 2 warships. Kalara and Caleb were to present their evidence to the council representative in person. The hearing took place in a grand hall, a wide, circular chamber. At the center, an older Dravari female named Counselor Asar stood, flanked by armed Draveri guards. Kalara recounted their story. Caleb demonstrated the data on a hollow projector as images of the hidden labs, the savage test subject, and the shipping logs scrolled by. The Dravari spectators murmured in anger. Counselor Asar's face remained impassive but grim. You have done well, both of you, Asar pronounced when the presentation was complete. This conspiracy is an affront to the Dravari people and to civilized space. We will coordinate with the Confederation to dismantle it. Rest assured, Herculeon Prime will not remain under Quintus' control. A sense of relief washed over Caleb. They had done it. They had brought the truth to those with the power to act. Kalara stood stoically, acknowledging the council with a respectful bow. As they left the chamber, Counselor Asar pulled Kalara aside briefly, her voice low. The Council has high regard for your actions, Kalara. Though you left active service, you have once again proven your worth to the Dravari. Should you wish to rejoin the Vanguard at full rank, it can be arranged. Kalara blinked. I appreciate the offer. Counselor, let me think on it. As they walked away, Caleb caught the flicker of conflict in Kalara's eyes. He quietly asked, Are you considering rejoining your people's military? She sighed. I always plan to return, eventually, but not quite this soon. However, the Dravari appreciate immediate displays of loyalty. Turning down the offer might be seen as disrespectful. He studied her face. I don't want to stand in your way. She searched his gaze. Perhaps there is a path that includes you. We have found something important together. Bonds do not break easily among my kind. Warmth fluttered in his chest. Then we'll figure it out. Together. A hush of understanding passed between them. Whatever decisions lay ahead, they would navigate them side by side, for they had discovered not just a training partnership, but a bond forged in adversity and tempered by mutual respect. With the Dravari warships mobilizing, a coordinated strike was planned to retake Herculeon Prime and apprehend Director Quintus. The operation involved a combined task force, Dravari warriors and Confederation investigators, each determined to uncover every last detail of Project Synergy. The outpost bustled with activity. Ships loaded supplies, drones ran system checks, and squads of Dravari commandos prepared for boarding actions. Meanwhile, Kalara and Caleb found themselves in an unexpected role advisors to the incoming strike. Their intimate knowledge of the station's layout and security systems made them invaluable. As the time drew near, Commander Arashk approached them in the outpost's war room, a circular space dominated by a holographic table projecting Herculeon Prime's rotating image. We have arranged for you to join our strike force, if you so choose, Arashk said. Your insights will be crucial. Kalara nodded crisply. We will go. This began under our watch. We will see it finished. Caleb stood beside her. Count me in. Arashk's stern expression softened slightly. Your bravery does you credit. The Dravari shall not forget. Soon, Kalara and Caleb found themselves aboard the Dravari warship Fire Talon, a vessel bristling with advanced weaponry and manned by a disciplined crew. In the stateroom, they shared. Kalara meticulously checked her combat gear, a Dravari breastplate with built-in shield generators, reinforced bracers, and a harness that held her favored weapons. Caleb pulled on a modified suit of Dravari combat fabric that Arashk provided a bit large in some areas, but far sturdier than his old military fatigues. He couldn't help a wry grin. Never thought I'd be wearing Dravari armor. Kalara adjusted one of his shoulder plates, ensuring a snug fit. You'll need all the protection you can get. We do not know what monstrous creations might greet us when we return to Herculeon Prime. He nodded, sobering. Right. No telling how far Quintus's experiments went, or how many subjects he's turned. A short while later, the warship's klaxon announced their arrival in Herculeon Prime's sector. Through the viewport, they spotted the station at a distance, ringed by a handful of smaller ships that seemed on high alert. The Dravari forces wasted no time. They broadcast an ultimatum: surrender and submit to inspection, or face immediate boarding. Quintus' response came in the form of laser fire. Defense turrets on Herculeon Prime opened up, strafing the Dravari warships. Shield flares lit the vacuum, turning space into a field of crackling energy. The Dravari capital ship returned fire, taking out the turrets with focused blasts. Within minutes, the combined strike force launched boarding shuttles. Kalara, Caleb, and a squad of Dravari commandos packed into a gunship that rocketed across the void. They clamped onto the station's hull, melting through an airlock with specialized breaching charges. The hull split open, revealing the interior corridors now dimly lit and eerily quiet. The Dravari commandos stepped in first, weapons at the ready. Kalara and Caleb followed, hearts pounding. The memory of their previous flight through these halls flashed through Caleb's mind. A group of armed guards rushed them, but the Dravari commandos were merciless and efficient. Energy weapons shrieked, dropping the guards in seconds. The infiltration advanced further into the station, taking corridor after corridor. Meanwhile, transmissions reported scattered pockets of resistance, though many station personnel apparently surrendered once they realized the scale of the Dravari assault. At last, Kailara led them to the hidden labs where they had once discovered the monstrous experiments. This time, they found multiple test subjects, various aliens, strapped to medical tables, half-dosed with the glowing fluid. Dravari medics hurried in to stabilize them, while the commandos cleared each room. Caleb's stomach churned at the sight, a Silenx whose elongated limbs twitched uncontrollably, a Garindi moaning in delirium. The cruelty of Project Synergy was laid bare. Kalara's eyes gleamed with righteous fury. These halls reek of dishonor. They pressed on, deeper into the restricted area. A hail of blaster fire forced them behind cover. From an adjoining corridor, a squad of heavily armored security troops blocked their path. Above them loomed a Dravari giant, another test subject. Eyes unnaturally red, veins aglow with the dreaded fluid. Kalara roared a challenge, stepping out boldly. Energy bolts scorched the walls around her as she advanced. She tossed a small projectile, a Dravari concussion device that detonated with a flash of searing light. The corridor shook. The commandos charged, engaging the disoriented guards. Caleb, taking aim with his rifle, fired precise shots that forced the altered Dravari to stagger back. Kalara seized the moment, locking arms with the monstrous figure in a brutal grapple. Their combined mass shattered a control console, sending sparks flying. With sheer technique, Kailara used momentum to twist behind the behemoth, driving an armored elbow into its spine. A final jolt from her gauntlets built in shock emitter dropped the creature, which collapsed in a stunned heap. Breathing heavily, she turned to Caleb, who finished off the last guard with a stun bolt. "Are you hurt?" she panted. He shook his head. "I'm good. Let's keep moving." They reformed with the commandos and pushed toward the heart of the lab complex, a fortified chamber that, according to station schematics, served as the nerve center for Project Synergy. The door was sealed with multiple layers of security. Dravari technicians hurried forward, slicing into the system. Tension mounted until the locks finally disengaged with a hiss. The door slid open, revealing a stark command room filled with monitoring stations, data banks, and a single occupant, Director Quintas. He stood behind a console, eyes blazing with desperation. Several more altered Dravari, each heavily muscled and bearing the lab's ominous enhancements, flanked him like bodyguards. "You again," Quintas snarled at Kalara and Caleb. "You dare to ruin everything. My vision for a new galaxy, one no longer shackled by the weak." Kalara's voice rumbled with uncharacteristic rage. "Your twisted experiments have ended," Quintas sneered. "No. They've only just begun. My perfected soldiers finished them." On his command, the altered Dravari lunged forward, roaring with savage fury. The Dravari commandos rushed to meet them in a cacophony of clashing metal and sizzling energy. Caleb scrambled aside, firing controlled bursts to weaken the enemy. Kalara met one of the monstrous warriors head-on, fists colliding in an impact that shook the floor. The creature lashed out with unnatural speed, but Kalara's training prevailed. She battered aside its blows, countering with punishing strikes that cracked its enhanced armor. It reeled, then dropped under her final onslaught. Two more advanced on her from behind, but the commandos intervened, pinning the brutes in a storm of plasma blasts. Meanwhile, Caleb shifted his attention to Quintus, who was frantically tapping at a console. "He's trying to wipe the data or trigger a meltdown," Caleb yelled. Kalara whirled, hurling her shock baton. The weapon struck Quintus's console, sparking violently. He cursed, stumbling backward. Caleb dashed forward, gun trained on the director. "Don't move," he barked. "This ends now." Quintus glared, eyes wild. "You can stop me, but you can't stop progress. Somewhere, others will replicate my work. Power always finds a way." Kalara stepped in, towering over him. "Your monstrous brand of progresses will be remembered only as a crime." Sensing the hopelessness of his situation, Quintus lunged for a hidden weapon, but Kalara seized him by the collar, slamming him onto the console. He groaned, dazed. The last of his enhanced bodyguards lay defeated across the room, pinned by Dravari commandos who bound them in restraints. An uneasy silence followed. The command room was filled with the acrid tang of scorched circuitry and the ragged breathing of exhausted combatants. Quintus lay pinned under Kalara's unyielding grip, eyes burning with hatred. Commander Arashk's voice crackled over comms. "Status." Kalara lifted her communicator. "We have taken the command center. Project Synergy is neutralized. Quintus is in custody." Cheers and affirmations echoed across the Strike Force channels. Hours later, with the station secured and Project Synergy's test subjects receiving urgent medical care, Caleb and Kalara walked side by side through the battered corridors. The Dravari warships hovered outside, ensuring no one escaped. Confederation medics arrived to handle cross-species treatments. Overhead, emergency lights pulsed, but the worst of the fighting was over. Near the primary training dome where Caleb had first met Kalara, they paused. The dome lay scorched by stray blaster fire, some of the equipment destroyed. Memories flooded Caleb, the day she had pinned him on the mat, their first routine demonstration. For a moment, he felt an unexpected pang of nostalgia. So much had changed, so fast. "You've come full circle," Kalara said quietly, echoing his thoughts. He nodded. "It's strange to think about. This place was supposed to be a beacon of interspecies cooperation. Instead, Quintus twisted it to do terrible things." Kalara's gaze swept over the ruined training area. "Perhaps it can be rebuilt, purged of corruption." He managed a small smile. "I'd like that." Outside, in the station's main concourse, they joined Arashk and Confederation representatives who were finalizing the handover of evidence and prisoners. Quintus, bruised and bitter, was led away in shackles, screaming curses. The Dravarian Confederation officers watched him go with grim satisfaction. "Justice will be served," one of the human officers said, turning to Kalara and Caleb. "On behalf of the Confederation, thank you." Arashk spoke next, addressing Kalara. "I trust you will have no objections if the Council recommends special honors for your service, and for the human as well." Kalara bowed. "I am humbled, but I request that Caleb and I be given leeway to decide our future now that the threat has passed." Arashk inclined her head. "The Council shall respect your choice." Caleb and Kalara exchanged glances. Their decisions would shape the next stage of their journey. Would they remain in Dravari territory, return to Earth space, continue as a team, or follow separate destinies? Kalara set a hand on his shoulder. "Whatever we choose, we will do so together." He took a steady breath, Agreed. Let's see where this path leads. In the swirl of the aftermath, with cameras flashing and officials conferring, they stepped aside, forging a private moment in the midst of public triumph. Their gazes met, and they remembered the journey from a curious gym membership to a perilous conspiracy, from trainer and trainee to partners, maybe more. Whatever the galaxy held in store, they knew they had found something genuine and enduring in each other. And for the first time in a long while, Caleb felt that he truly belonged. Kailara's quiet strength and unspoken devotion told him the feeling was mutual. Together, they had defied the odds and would continue to do so. With Herculeon Prime secured, an interim administration took over, while Dravari and Confederation experts worked tirelessly to dismantle every trace of Project Synergy. Medical teams from various species poured in, striving to heal the rescued subjects. The entire station, once a showpiece of interstellar cooperation, became an active relief zone. Overshadowed by the scars of Quintus's crimes, Kailara and Caleb found themselves at the heart of it all. Recognized as key figures who had exposed and halted the conspiracy, officials offered them separate accommodations and invitations to debriefings, interviews, and official gatherings. Despite the swirl of responsibilities, they managed to carve out fleeting moments of respite. One morning, after a long night assisting medics, Caleb found Kailara in a quiet observation deck. She stood by a reinforced window, arms folded, gazing at a swirl of cosmic dust outside the station. The artificial day cycle lighting cast a soft glow around her, emphasizing her tall, proud figure and the etched lines of concern on her face. He approached quietly. "Hey," she turned, a small smile lifting her features. "Good morning. Did you rest well?" He shrugged. "As well as I could. Too many thoughts." She nodded in empathy. Likewise. They fell into silence for a moment, each lost in reflections of the last day's battle, revelations, the slow process of mending what had been broken. Finally, Kailara took a deep breath. "I spoke with Counselor Assar," she said. "They have offered me a restored rank in the Vanguard, a captain's commission, if I accept." Caleb's chest tightened. "That's an incredible honor." She inclined her head. "It is. Yet I have also received a position request from the Herculeon Prime interim leadership. They want me to stay and help rebuild the station's training program, to restore its original mission of uniting species through discipline and strength. Apparently, the Dravari's involvement remains highly valued despite Quintus's betrayal." Caleb breathed out slowly, feeling a swirl of conflicting emotions. Both are big responsibilities. She shifted her gaze to meet his. "I do not wish to be parted from you." The warmth in those words filled him with quiet resolve. "I feel the same. But I don't want to stand in the way of your duty to the Vanguard. I know. That was your life, before any of this." She reached out, gently brushing his hair back. The tenderness in her gesture nearly undid him. "Duty is important, yes, but so are the bonds we forge. The Dravari see no dishonor in forging a new path, especially if it is for a cause that benefits many. Restoring Herculeon Prime to a place of honorable training might be a fitting tribute to those who were harmed." He studied her. "You'd choose to stay here and help rebuild, rather than rejoin the Vanguard." Her lips curved subtly. "Perhaps. If you remain as well, this station could use a strong, dedicated soldier who can relate to both humans and other species. You have proven your capacity." He blinked, feeling an unexpected surge of excitement. "Me. Train or help organize the new gym program?" She nodded. "Why not? You excelled in the advanced Dravari regimen, overcame the station's darkest secrets, and you stand as a symbol of interspecies cooperation. I think it would be a worthy role. He felt a grin tug at his lips. I can't argue with that. We could bring the station back to what it was meant to be, a place where any species can learn. Safely and ethically. She nodded. And for a moment, the future felt bright amid the echoes of tragedy. They had a chance to turn the page, to rebuild the dream that Quintus had corrupted, and they could do it together. Just then, footsteps sounded behind them. A human officer approached, clearing his throat. Pardon the interruption, but the Confederation Council reps are requesting your presence in the main briefing hall. They want to finalize statements about the resolution of Project Synergy. Understood, Kalara said. Giving the officer a short bow of her head, she glanced at Caleb, a gentle question in her eyes. Are you ready? He nodded. Let's get it over with. They followed the officer through winding corridors, eventually entering a spacious briefing hall. Media drones hovered in the air, capturing every angle. A collection of dignitaries and officers, both human and Dravari, assembled around a central podium. Commander Arashk stood near Counselor Asar and a Confederation official. Director Mooring presided over the assembly. Mooring's amplified voice boomed in the hall. People of the Confederation and Dravari allies, we gather today to confirm the end of Project Synergy's illegal activities on Herculeon Prime. Thanks to the bravery of Kalara of the Dravari Vanguard and Caleb Rhine of Earth, we have secured the station and freed numerous captives from unethical experimentation. A round of applause erupted. Arashk added, the Dravari Council extends its gratitude to these individuals. Let the record show their honorable conduct in the face of great peril. Then Mooring gestured for Kalara and Caleb to step forward. The hush was immediate, expectant. Caleb felt a flush creep up his neck, unaccustomed to the spotlight. Kalara stood tall, radiating composed strength. You have delivered the station from a grave threat, Mooring said. As we move forward, we hope to see Herculeon Prime reclaimed for its rightful purpose, an interstellar hub of training and cooperation. To that end, I understand that you both have accepted roles in the station's new administration. Kalara stepped to the podium. We have. It is our wish to ensure that no such travesty occurs again. We will rebuild the training programs, restore trust, and remain vigilant. Caleb found his voice. We'll do everything we can to honor the original mission of Herculeon Prime, so that all species feel safe here. Another wave of applause, more subdued but respectful. As they stepped back, Commander Arashk approached, awarding them each a ceremonial medal, human and Dravari, both minted to symbolize unity. The crowd roared its approval, and Caleb couldn't stop a wide, grateful grin from spreading across his face. In that moment, standing beside Kalara as cameras flashed and cheers filled the air, he felt the weight of their shared journey. From an uncertain ex-soldier seeking a gym membership to a champion of interspecies unity, alongside a towering Dravari trainer, life had taken a remarkable turn. After the ceremony, they were ushered into a side room, away from the crowds. Counselor Asar and a few other Dravari officials waited there, nodding in solemn appreciation. Asar, Kalara said softly, bowing her head. The older Dravari inclined hers in return. Your choice to remain on Herculeon Prime has been noted. The Council supports your decision, though we mourn the loss of a potential Vanguard captain. Still, your contribution here may be greater than any you could offer elsewhere. The Dravari will always welcome you home. Kalara placed a hand over her heart. Thank you, Counselor. Asar's gaze slid to Caleb, a flicker of curiosity in her eyes. You have chosen a companion from beyond our species. This, 2.E, is a rare path. May it bring honor to you both. He dipped his head respectfully. "I'll do my best." The counselor offered a faint, approving smile. "We will depart soon. May your days here be prosperous. If ever you have need, call upon us." With that, the Dravari officials took their leave. Kalara and Caleb stood in the hushed room, alone once more. "Well," he said, exhaling, "looks like we're going to be quite busy." She nodded, a faint curve to her lips. "Indeed, rebuilding an entire station's training infrastructure will be no simple feat." He let a small, warm laugh escape. "But we've faced worse, haven't we?" She gripped his shoulder, leaning down to press her forehead against his in a gesture of gentle affection. "Yes, we have. Together." In that silent vow, sealed by shared breath, they braced themselves for the task ahead and the promise of a future they would shape side by side. Herculeon Prime was a hive of reconstruction. The station's battered infrastructure was methodically repaired under the direction of engineering crews from both the Dravari realm and the Confederation. The once secret labs were gutted, repurposed into legitimate medical facilities and research wings dedicated to ethical enhancement therapies for voluntary patients. Kalara and Caleb settled into new roles, overseeing the station's revitalized training divisions. The official title for their department was Interspecies Physical, Development, and Defense. But around the station, people simply called it the gym. Despite the comedic simplicity of that nickname, the scope of their work was vast. They had to coordinate with various species experts, ensuring that each culture's physical practices were honored and integrated into a safe, state-of-the-art program. Kalara supervised the overall structure, laying out advanced Dravari methodologies adapted for multi-species use, while Caleb focused on bridging the cultural gaps, liaising with humans, Silinx, Gorindi, and more. On a typical day, Caleb would start with a meeting among their diverse staff humans, Dravari, and other species that had joined since the station's reclamation. They would discuss the training regimens for new arrivals, ensuring each participant's safety. Meanwhile, Kalara would drill advanced recruits in the newly repaired training dome. Every day felt like a testament to triumph over the darkness that once lurked beneath Herculeon Prime's surface. The station's population grew steadily, with individuals arriving from across the Orion Arm. Many expressed relief that the place was under fresh leadership, a sign of genuine collaboration between species. And in the midst of their responsibilities, Kalara and Caleb nurtured a closeness that anchored them both. Their bond, once forged in crisis, now found space to flourish in peaceful times. At day's end, they would share quiet dinners in a lounge overlooking the stars, or walk the corridors hand in hand, drawing curious but generally accepting looks from passers-by. One day, a special visitor arrived, Overseer Sirik, who had quietly aided them during the crisis. Sirik stepped off a shuttle that docked in the newly reopened lower bay, looking warier but no less dignified. Caleb greeted them personally. "Overseer Sirik," he said, offering a handshake. "It's good to see you." Sirik nodded, avian features twisting into a relieved smile. "I was granted a reprieve from my interrogation by the Confederation. They wanted to ensure I did not collude with Quintas, but eventually realized I was on your side." "Glad to hear it," Caleb replied. "Kalara will be happy you're here." In the refurbished administrative suite, they regrouped with Kalara, who offered Sirik a respectful half-bow. "You have our gratitude, Overseer. Without your covert support, we might not have uncovered the truth in time." Sirik waved a feathery hand. "I did only what was necessary. How fares the station?" Kalara gestured to the windows overlooking the training dome. "Reborn, in a sense. We still have repairs and expansions to manage, but the facility is operational, free from corruption. Sirik's eyes shone with quiet satisfaction. That is all I ever wished for, an honest environment for interspecies collaboration. Later, the three of them strolled the station's corridors, observing the flux of newcomers. Groups of trainees arrived, some wide-eyed at the imposing Dravari instructors. Others gawked at the advanced gravity chambers or the zero-G obstacle courses. Caleb watched them pass, recalling his own sense of awe on his first day. As they reached a newly opened corridor that led to a lounge area, Kalara placed a hand on Caleb's shoulder, guiding him aside. Sirik lingered politely out of earshot. Kalara lowered her voice. "We have come far. I sometimes wonder if you miss the frontier you grew up on, or the simpler life you once had." He exhaled softly, meeting her golden gaze. "I had my fill of the frontier. Sometimes, sure. I miss small freedoms, quiet nights under open skies. But here, we're doing something meaningful, bridging species and giving them a chance to grow. I wouldn't trade it." Her lips curved in a faint smile. "Good. Nor would I. It seems we have found a home of sorts." He threaded his fingers through hers, ignoring the difference in size. "Then let's continue to make it a home for others too." A ceremony was held to officially inaugurate the new era of Herculeon Prime. Dignitaries, ambassadors, and sponsors from several species gathered. A great dais was set up in the main concourse, adorned with interwoven banners of Dravari script and Confederation symbols. Music from various cultures filled the air, weaving a tapestry of sound that embodied the unity they aimed to foster. Caleb, wearing a tailored uniform that bore both Dravari and Confederation insignias, stood beside Kalara, who wore formal Dravari regalia, sleek yet stately. The station's atmosphere buzzed with anticipation. Overseer Sirik made the opening address, praising the brave souls who had saved the station from the brink. Representatives from the Dravari Council stood in silent support. Then Kalara stepped forward. The crowd hushed. "I am Kalara of the Dravari," she said in a clear, resonant voice. "I stand here to affirm this station's rebirth, no longer tainted by secret horrors, but dedicated to shared growth and honorable training. May Herculeon Prime shine as a beacon of cooperation among our diverse worlds." An enthusiastic cheer followed. Caleb took a deep breath and moved to the podium. "And I'm Caleb Rhine. Many of us come from places where life isn't easy. We come here to push ourselves, to learn from each other, and to find shared strength. That's our promise now, no more hidden agendas, just honest effort toward mutual respect." The applause rippled louder. As they stepped away from the podium, Kalara gently clasped Caleb's hand. He gave her a grateful look. The station's future, once so uncertain, now shone with promise, and they were at the center of it, forging a path no one would have anticipated when they first met as trainer and trainee. Under Herculeon Prime's expansive observation dome, a hush blanketed the crowd. Stars glimmered outside the curved glass, forming a grand cosmic tapestry. The newly refurbished floors gleamed beneath soft lighting, and at the center of this tranquil space, Kalara and Caleb stood facing each other, flanked by a small circle of close friends, Dravari, human, and others. Overseer Sirik presided. It was an informal yet deeply meaningful ceremony, a merging of Dravari and human customs, signifying the union of two souls. Kalara wore a ceremonial harness accented with subtle metal inlays, signifying her lineage. Caleb stood in a simple, elegant tunic embroidered with Dravari motifs. Their joined hands were wrapped with a thin strip of cloth woven from Dravari fibers and earth cotton, a tangible symbol of their interwoven lives. Sirik spoke in calm, measured tones. "We gather to witness the bond of Kalara of the Dravari and Caleb Rhine of Earth. Though from different worlds, they have walked a singular path of challenge, camaraderie, and triumph over adversity. Kalara's golden eyes shone with quiet emotion as she gazed down at Caleb, who looked up with an earnest smile. Their journey had been marked by danger and discovery, but also profound connection. This moment was a testament to love crossing boundaries once deemed insurmountable. Sirik continued, in Dravari tradition, each participant affirms their commitment by acknowledging their partner's strengths. Kalara, do you affirm Caleb's honor and courage in forging a life alongside you? Kalara's voice was steady and resonant. I do. I have witnessed his spirit in the heat of battle, his heart in the aftermath of tragedy. I am proud to stand with him. Sirik turned to Caleb. Caleb, do you affirm Kalara's dedication and wisdom, and vow to walk beside her in harmony? He drew a breath, feeling the press of tears at the corner of his eyes. I do. Her strength and compassion have changed my life. I can't imagine the future without her. In that softly lit dome, with stars as silent witnesses, they exchanged vows, a blend of Dravari oaths and human promises, each phrase resonating with sincerity. Then, after a gentle nod from Sirik, Kalara bent to meet Caleb's lips in a gentle, unwavering kiss. Applause and joyful exclamations burst from the onlookers. They drew apart, hands still clasped. In the hush that followed, the announcer declared them bound in the eyes of both Dravari law and the universal traditions of the Confederation. It was an unprecedented union, but one met with warm acceptance. The station's new era would be marked by their story, the unstoppable Dravari warrior and the human soldier who found common ground, forging love in the midst of chaos. Later, as music played and well-wishers offered congratulations, Caleb and Kalara slipped away to a quiet section of the dome. Through the transparent windows, they gazed at the cosmic vista. Kalara softly brushed her knuckles against Caleb's cheek. We have walked a long road, you and I. He entwined his fingers with hers, marveling at how natural it felt despite the size difference. And we'll walk many more together. Herculeon Prime is just the beginning. She leaned down, pressing her forehead to his in a tender Dravari gesture. Yes, let us stand side by side, forging new paths for ourselves and for all who look to this station as a place of hope. He closed his eyes, heart brimming with gratitude and love. Together, he echoed. And so, under the gleaming stars and the station's revitalized glow, they embarked on the next chapter of their journey, bound by devotion, tested by adversity, and united in purpose. Herculeon Prime stood as their shared home, a living testament that strength, honor, and love could cross even the greatest of interstellar divides.